It is now mathematically impossible for Illinois to ever pay back on its obligations. There's simply no possible way. The final nail in the coffin has taken place, and it's simply a matter of time, a short period of time, before the government has to declare some form of default. Connecticut is in a tight spot as well with unpayable debt, and now a third state is in a grand mess. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today, we'll look at this scenario, the importance of it, how the pension funds are gone. Let's begin. Out of the Chicago Tribune, a federal judge on Friday ordered Illinois to start paying $293 million in state money toward Medicaid bills every month and an additional $1 billion over the course of the next year. They already have a terrible situation, and this federal judge has just put the final nail in the coffin. I'm not necessarily agreeing with either side. There's just too much debt, too many obligations, and the governments overextend themselves. The whole system is a failure. They are with a $3 billion backlog owed to healthcare providers. And this is the type of thing that has taken place in many different sectors. This happens to be just one of them. They are an estimate of $500 million per month, and they have to pay down $2 billion of its bill backlog and payments spread out over the course of the coming fiscal year. These are amounts that they simply can never pay back. It's not as if the economy starts doing better, then these bills can be paid off. It's just not going to happen. So we have to come to terms with that. Illinois is bankrupt, but technically they can't say that they are bankrupt, so they'll have to do things differently. And what I believe could very well happen is that they begin to sell off assets. A lot of people would agree to this. They'll say, look, if Google wants to come in and buy up a whole bunch of streets and land and buildings and infrastructure, then I think it's fine. They could do that. It would help the government finance their problems, and they would get over it. You could make an argument for that. However, these corporations don't have the country's best interest in mind. Though they may have their headquarters there, these are faceless corporations. And while the government as a whole doesn't have that country's particular interest in mind, and we know that as a fact, it's simply that it's better, let's say, if the country owns it. And we want as little debt on all of this ownership as possible. We want the country to have it paid for, and for it to service itself at the lowest amount of money needed as possible. But that doesn't happen. It just expands and expands and expands. The debt becomes too much, and then we sell it off to corporations who then charge us for using it. And that right there is in fact a scam. Let's go deeper into the issue. We're looking at Maine. That's the next state to fall into this debt trap. The governor said he won't sign a state budget package endorsed on Thursday night by a special panel ensuring a partial shutdown of the state government at midnight. And apparently they had the same situation in 1991. So what we are experiencing here is no different than what we've seen many times before. The government essentially shuts down. They get into a critical situation, and then they have to react, let's say, in haste. And that, to me, is when the worst decisions are made. They take a bill, and it's 10,000 pages, and they have to read over it in a matter of an hour. Of course, that doesn't happen. And then they pass the law. And somehow these laws that they put through have the most random things that are stuck in there. But of course, nobody finds out until, let's say, 2 years later. And that information is brought up and it's just swept under the rug because there's another 10 things that have come in between now and then. That's the way it is. This here is a map and a chart from Bloomberg, and it's from the 2015 figures, but let's just take it for what it is. Public employee pension funding ratio by state. It's sort of a simple chart type image here showing you the different states and the problems that they are in. You could see at the time New Jersey 37.5. What I want to bring to your attention is this at the bottom, the chart form. Funding ratio 2015 New Jersey 37.5. Total pension liability $217 billion. These statistics keep getting worse. I mean, it's a fact. All of these numbers are much worse than they are, but even going by these, they can't be paid back. If you think about that, all of the schemes that they use to put everything off their balance sheet, and still they're showing how bad it truly is. How is this going to be paid back? Well, you have a few options. You can issue debt, which simply puts the burden further out into the future because you have to give more money in the end. And then you have the potential to sell off assets. And that really is the globalists' favorite plan. They've done it in Greece, everywhere else, in fact. You can see that. Corporations are buying up the assets of countries. And as I've said before, they do not have our best interests in mind. These central bankers are criminal. They're running this like a business, and it's cutthroat. Look at the global debt. Global debt, first of all, it is at 217 trillion. That's trillion with a T. It's 327% of the world's GDP. And those numbers are fake. But even still, it's 327%. That can't be paid back. And then people will say, but we owe it to ourselves, so there's nothing to worry about. Well, it's not exactly how it works because the government doesn't issue any debt necessarily. The central banks are the ones controlling the system. They decide everything. These central bankers have a hold on our economy. They have a hold on the monetary system, and they say what goes. All right. With all of this debt, we need to think about it. We don't have an economy which can support all of this debt. It's a fact. However, we have a central bank that can print up money, and they can, in fact, buy up all that debt. Why not do that? If there is no consequence to that, as some suggest, then why not do that? Why have a state of debt when the government can go into debt at every level, people can go into debt, and then we just print up money and give it to these various people, states, everything else, government levels. Why not? Well, of course it has unintended consequences or intended consequences. That's how it works. Debt is designed to crush you and I. People don't realize that. But the system of debt is created by the central bankers purposely. That's why they created the Federal Reserve in secret on Jekyll Island. They didn't do it in front of a public forum. They didn't do this with, a whole bunch of citizens invited to the party, have the media present. No, it was done under super secret terms with all the richest of the rich and powerful people. If the system was designed to benefit you and I, they wouldn't do it in the shadows. Of course we know that. We know that. But people still celebrate the system, and it's the system itself which has failed us a long time ago, but that's how it was designed. Look at this. More hedge funds have shut than started since the last quarter of 2015. There are a couple reasons for this. You could have a lack of profits, but the stock market has risen considerably. Then you also have those who have a change of heart and they realize what's happening and they're bailing in the system. They're just bailing out. No pun intended. I've shown you that before, as well as the fact that they've perhaps feel that what's coming is something serious and they don't want any part of holding onto the people's money yet still making these percentages on their fees, knowing that they're holding a bunch of garbage. I don't know what's going on here, but it's a fact. More hedge funds have started to shut down. You also have the computer and algorithm trading, which are displacing a lot of these people. So, and interconnected to the point I made in the couple articles ago, just 8 men own the same wealth as half of the world. 8 men own the same amount of wealth as 3.6 billion people. That is huge. I mean, even though that they are the poorest people in the world, it's still 3.6 billion of them. I mean, that's huge. That's massive. And why? Because we have a system that they designed. They own and control the governments. They own and control all the corporations. The elite control you and I because they control the education system, the food system, the pharmaceutical system, and everything else in between. They run it. They run the show. So if I'm going to bring information to you, it's done on such a small scale. It can never be a big scale. It's hard. It's very, very difficult to get the information across. Trying to bail out the world with a thimble. That's really what it feels like a lot of times. You and I are here. We know the truth. Unfortunately, because of the power that these elite hold, it's an uphill battle. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. And last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you'll find my books, The Money GPS and my new release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. So what you can do to look through the book is just go to Amazon because they have a look inside feature, which allows you to flip through the pages of them. If you're interested in the first book, it's about the 4 asset classes and how to profit from them. My new release, Global Economic Collapse, is about the money GPS strategy, and that's reducing your monthly expenses, tax incentives, solar panels, all that sort of good stuff. So you can check that out as Amazon. The links are in the description. Take care.